Good morning, everybody. Yep, thank you for that introduction. Guess we'll get straight into it. Going back to basics for a second here. So one of the first things that we learn about when dealing with spatial data, spatial information, is how we can represent features. And discrete entities, we often use vector information, so points, lines, and polygons. And each of these have their own inherent properties, which we can use to understand their place in the world. So today I'm going to be focusing on linear features and my fascination with them. So linear features have their own unique geography, which we can use to manage spatial information and also understand their interactions with the landscape. And don't worry, I'm not going to be showing you my holiday snaps. And I might normally ask the room what this photo is, but it's probably a bit of a big room to do that. So I'll just let you know. So this is a Roman milestone. Essentially, it probably functions very similar to road signage does today. It helps people traveling locate where they are on their journey. So we can locate features along a linear entity, and this might be something associated with that linear entity, or it might just be something that happens to be close by and interact with it. Or it could be a property of that linear entity. And we can use these distance measures to locate these things. And this is known as linear referencing. So on the top line here, we can see the use of a single point to identify something that is 10 kilometers along this 30-kilometer linear feature. And in the second line, we're showing how we can represent a section of that linear entity. So using spatial technologies and GIS tools and bringing them together, we can, and I have done over the last number of years, I've done a lot of work looking at potential environmental and sustainability impacts of linear infrastructure. So we can use this concept of linear referencing to look at both intersection and proximity impacts. So we can see on this diagram that our 30-kilometer linear feature is intersecting with one parcel, and there is another parcel which is in quite close proximity and may have an indirect impact. So an actual example of this, just to locate where this is, so southeast England, around Brighton and Hastings. Some of you may be familiar with this area. So this example is showing A roads in that area and potential impacts with registered parks and gardens. So we've got the red showing the direct impact, which is the intersection, and we've got the orange, which looks at indirect impact, or that proximity impact. And I've done a lot of work over the last number of years about looking at different potential options of linear infrastructure and comparing how those options perform from an environmental and sustainability perspective, and to understand which of those options perform better. And through these techniques, bringing these different techniques together, we're able to do this in a pretty rapid and robust manner so that we can do it over and over again, and we're comfortable that we're getting the right results coming through. Now, obviously, this is all great, but I've been thinking recently that maybe this approach is a bit too negative. Obviously, understanding impacts are important, but maybe we can also consider benefits or opportunities too. So thinking a bit more of a positive spin. What are the benefits and opportunities of linear features or linear infrastructure, and how we can maximize those benefits and opportunities? So one area that I'm currently investigating is a concept some of you may have heard of. It's called a biodiversity net gain. From, I think it's November next year, 2023, all new developments in the UK must include a 10% uplift in biodiversity, so nature, essentially. So we need to leave places in a better state than we found them. And one way to do this is by improving the habitats in that location. Now, one of the inherent features of linear infrastructure is connectivity. Obviously, it's connecting places. It's allowing people to travel from point A to point B. And one important factor in a habitat's ability to nurture biodiversity is through connectivity of habitat parcels. So ensuring parcels of similar habitats are joined up. This can allow wildlife to thrive. So we're working on using linear infrastructure to help plan habitat connectivity improvements. So connecting for us and connecting for wildlife. And hopefully that will help both people and nature thrive side by side. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Does anybody have any questions for Stephen? Any questions? Any hands up? No? Oh, we've got one at the front here. Have we got the mic runner? Brilliant.
Hi, it's not necessarily just for you, Stephen, but as you're on point, maybe you'd like to comment. Really, a question for all the speakers this morning as we've come through the pandemic, and we've all heard about new normal. I hear that things are back to normal. I also hear that there are all types of different hybrid working approaches. What sort of work is going on in the world of geospatial modeling and time series analysis to try track at segmentation level about what's happening in society? Have we been able to use any of that information, not just in a commercial sense, but really to try and understand, have we adjusted our patterns and what sort of biodiversity impact may that have?
Okay, I can try and answer that. Thank you very much. Personally, it's very interesting. I think, yeah, we're still, and probably will never be back to where we were. I think the majority of us can appreciate that things have changed forever. But in terms of sort of like the data coming through and how we're using that, so I mean, one example that I can give from work that we've done recently is looking at usage of the tram system in Manchester and how that has changed. So we are doing projects on the ground as we speak to try and understand what the impact has been how people are now behaving and how they're going to behave in the future. And I think it's going to be a little bit of time before that sort of information starts filtering down. But certainly there is money for local councils to spend to understand the implications, the impacts, not only on local transport services, but the impact on the high streets as well, what it means for businesses, and how people are using high streets now. So watch this space, I think. There's certainly work going on around it, but it might take a little bit of time for that information to be processed and changes to be made based on it.
Any other questions in the audience before we move on to the next talk? I think there's a lady over here.
Hi, Stephen. Thank you for your presentation. It was very interesting presentation. But from the other previous speakers too, I guess I was just curious about like what are your advices in regards to respect each place's granularity? Because it seems like in the field of geospatial data and data science and all that, it seems like we are trying to break the boundaries and create like a new discrete grids in terms of like modeling the reality. And so I guess my question is like, what would you advise to us like practitioners and like students or data enthusiasts here in respect to preserve as if I use your language is connecting the features and yeah, and considering there are so many ways, in my opinion, there are so many ways we can approach data and reality in daily basis, and formally and informally. Yeah, do you get, sorry, I'm
Yeah.
circling around. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you.
So obviously, depending on what it is that you're looking at, the level of granularity is you know, it changes, and it's really important to get it right. So obviously there's national data sets out there that we can use, but sometimes they can be too general. For example, sort of like census data can sometimes be too general to get a real understanding of the hyper-local areas that we're looking at. So one example I can think of some work that we've been doing recently up in Greater Manchester is looking at some of the towns, the local communities, and we realized that the sort of like standard data sets just doesn't go far enough because it's too coarse. So we've had to actually go onto the ground in those locations and collect data specifically for that project. And my advice is kind of data might be the start of the journey, but you have to kind of spin this journey around a bit. You have to understand, well, you have to determine what it is you want to understand, what you're trying to achieve, and work back from there to work out what information and what data is going to allow you to get to that endpoint, really.
Cool. Okay, I think we're going to have to move on to the next talk now. Thank you so much, Stephen, for joining us.